Excuse me, sir. I'm looking for a job. In fact, I've made up my mind to find a career that I can learn and grow into. Who am I? I'm a hard worker. I set high goals, and I've been told that I'm persistent. And I'm thinking, television news might just be something I love, as well as something I happen to be good at.
What is the meaning of success? And how far would you go to be successful? These are just some of the many questions that I'm left with after watching Dan Gilroy's directorial debut film, Nightcrawler. A film that packs many questions and shockingly few answers, as intended by the filmmakers behind it. It's a movie that is firmly planted in literally me culture, with a main character who is equal parts interesting and terrifying, yet strangely observable at the same time.
I think being clear with your objectives is more important than trying to present your ideas in a non-confrontational manner.
For a riveting viewing experience that is sure to entertain you and leave you heavily reflecting on your own morals, Nightcrawler may just be what you're looking for as we follow Lou Bloom, a shady LA loner who gets by on low-level schemes and odd jobs. But when he discovers the dark and dangerous world of freelance crime scene photography, Lou becomes obsessed with rising to the top of the food chain as a professional stringer. Along the way, we're taken for a ride complete with breakneck speed, back alley deals, blackmail, betrayal, manipulation, mentally and physically, and even murder as we watch the unlikely success of a truly despicable person.
Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that.
But what can we learn from this movie and the brilliant first-time filmmaker behind it? What does the character of Louis Bloom say about the news industry, and what does that say about us for watching it? These are all questions I hope to unpack in today's episode, where we take a thrilling look back on Dan Gilroy's film and try to determine once and for all, what's Nightcrawler really about?
I'm not going to list the many benefits of this piece. I think it's probably best you just watch it for yourself.
So, where do we start? How about the same place that Dan Gilroy started? LA crime scene reporting, specifically the world of stringers, a freelance industry of videographers that film crime scenes to sell the footage to news networks. Gilroy was fascinated with photography in general and originally wanted his film to be centered around that medium. But once he learned about the world of news stringers and night crawlers, he found that to be a unique and deeply rich perspective to tell his story. In my opinion, he's right, but with the story being set around this kind of industry, there comes inherent themes that need to be acknowledged. Things like the questionable ethics of certain kinds of journalism and the constant need that we have as an audience to consume it. Are we feeding the beast? Is this our fault? Did we do this? Well, it's not for me, or even Dan Gilroy, to say.
We sat down, he read the script, and I flew to Atlanta. He was doing Prisoners. Mm-hmm. And it's such a big moment for me, and it's such a big moment for him. I'm a first-time director. And look at the trust. Look what he's risking. And we sat down at a dinner, and we had a 4-hour dinner, and we were just so creatively in tune. The first thing he asked me was, how do you see the movie? And I told him, I said, I see it as a success story. And he burst out laughing. He goes, that's how I see it.
Dan Gilroy is an interesting storyteller. He delivered this movie with style and confidence, and I really admire that level of effort. But what I really love is the way that Gilroy plays with the audience by using his main character as someone very unlikable. Of course, this has been done before, but rarely in this way. The character of Lou is clearly a master manipulator and arguably just a flat-out sociopath. He's creepy, his tone and vocal cadence is very unsettling, and he doesn't do anything other than feed a plant that proves that he's even human. But somehow, and for some reason, we want to watch him. We want to see what he's going to do next. We don't want him to lose if that means that our rush would be over. You know what that sounds like to me? The news.
On TV, it looks so real.
Yes, it does.
We see through Lou's many interactions with Nina and other news executives that the business thrives on shock value. Basically, the more bloody and gnarly the news, the better the numbers are for the station. They don't see these victims as people, but rather content for their show, and Lou sees them as financial opportunities, as made clear many times throughout his journey. At one point, he even just says it.
Hey, don't film that, man. He's one of us.
Not anymore, Rick. We're professionals. He's a sale.
And above all, the very nature of their work has desensitized them to the reality of what it is that they're doing, because we as consumers have given them incentive to do so. Listen to this line that Nina says to Lou in their first interaction.
The best and clearest way that I can phrase it to you, Lou, to capture the spirit of what we air, is think of our newscast as a screaming woman running down the street with her throat cut.
I understand.
This dialogue shows us two things. One, it shows us that this is how Lou is automatically gonna see the industry. He didn't get into it with innocence and become jaded over time. In fact, his first impression is,
morning news, if it bleeds, it leads.
And this scene solidifies that. But it also shows how Lou finds his competitive edge. He learns from what Nina tells him that the key to success is to find the worst case scenario and exploit it for all it's worth. I think Gilroy clearly wanted to parallel the dynamics of unethical journalism and viral consumption to his film, where we see an unethical man doing horrible things, but we're all sat firmly in our seats, lined up to watch it.
If you approach it as a success story in a literal sense, that it's about a young man who's looking for work at the beginning, and at the end is the owner of a thriving business. If you approach it that way, you're taking off the moral judgment. And you're allowing people to say, wait a minute, maybe this isn't just a film about a sociopath or a psychopath, maybe it's about something more, which is what Jake wanted to explore.
So why do we like this? We see this guy blackmail Nina into some unexplained fetish thing. We see him tamper with dead bodies and crime scenes. We see him lie, cheat, steal, and even set up his own partner to be murdered in order to get good footage. This guy should repulse us.
Now, when I say that I want these things, I mean that I want them, and I don't want to have to ask again. And the last thing that I want, Nina, is for you to do the things that I ask you to do when we're alone together in your apartment. Not like the last time.
Jake Gyllenhaal once spoke on the character and stated that he saw Lou as a coyote, someone who wanders around the night, only eats when they need to, and is focused completely on their one sole goal. The character almost seems like an alien impersonating a human in the way that Jake Gyllenhaal gave the character a rapid and sharp speech pattern that is piercing through each page of dialogue.
I need you to tighten up a bit on this, because if you felt like that again, I will terminate you immediately, I promise you.
The actor states that he talked like this as a means of getting all of Gilroy's writing into the scene so that nothing would have to be cut for time. I hope that's true, because honestly, what a compliment. The character of Lou is also similar to that of many Literally Me characters, in that they all seem to share some sort of skewed version of right and wrong. Lou can smile while he's filming a gunshot wound or a dead body, but he can also give a menacing stare when you've pissed him off. He can change on a dime. He is unpredictable.
I think there's a simplification of it being obviously about the media, but I think movies like that have been made before, and I don't think that was what Dan's intention was. I think it's also easy to stop there, because what it does is put blame on something or someone, and I don't think Dan or I or anybody involved in the movie was interested in doing it to put blame on anything. I think we were I was fascinated by, I wanted to make the movie, and I know Dan wrote the movie because it was about showing us where we are a bit, asking us, the audience, who watches that footage, who tunes in even if they don't want to, who allows that to exist, how we are complicit in creating it, and how we can allow somebody like Lou to exist.
So why is Lou not scaring us off? Well, simply, we want to know if he'll win. The movie is like the perfect way to do a villain origin story because they don't make Lou a hero in any sense of the word. He's really only a hero to himself. If the movie had been told from, say, Riz Ahmed's character Rick's perspective, Lou would be all villain in our eyes. But the difference is that from the beginning, we know Lou is only out to do one thing: succeed at something. That's it. He doesn't even know what he wants to succeed at first. He just wants to be a memorable guy with some kind of social status. What we're really watching is a terrible person with vague but intense ambition who figures out his goal as he goes, and in the end, gets everything he wants. Lou wins.
Why you pursue something is equally as important as what you pursue.
See, this differs from other unlikable success stories because in other films, like take for instance The Wolf of Wall Street, Leo as Jordan Belfort was sort of an anti-protagonist. He was definitely loose on his morals and ethics, and he was cold and manipulative to his customers, and he was also immensely motivated. But Scorsese didn't tell the story as a success tale. It was more the rise and fall of a real-life person. But Lou doesn't have the fall, just the rise. He doesn't get his just desserts or learn anything from the many wrongdoings that he's racked up. Instead, he's rewarded for his bad behavior by becoming the head of his own successful news group, Video Production News.
A professional news gathering service. That's how it should be read and that's how it should be said.
And he uses that to obtain an entire catalog of freelance stringers who are ready to go as far as it takes to uphold the company's ruthless standards and methods.
I will never ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself.
Think about the feeling that you get when you watch movies like The Sandlot or The Matrix. We see our leading characters start at the bottom, learn their craft like baseball or jiu-jitsu, and then by the end they take on the antagonistic force and win the day. And we feel that warm and cozy feeling because the leading characters we follow are generally likable and good. But with Lou, he is none of those things. But he follows the traditional outline, only Gilroy replaced the likability with ruthless determination and the good nature with gross manipulative charm. Take for example this scene where Lou is literally dragging a body closer to the headlights of a flipped car in order to get a better shot. This behavior is horrifying, but the music and the framing is inspirational and triumphant. This certainly makes for a conflicting feeling about what we're seeing. So what's the point of it all? Why do we care if a bad person gets everything they want if it means sacrificing innocent people for their own desires? Well, I don't think we're really supposed to know. See, Dan Gilroy seems to be happy raising questions rather than giving answers or his own commentary. I find this to be immensely annoying when trying to figure out what the movie wants us to think, but I think that's also kind of the point. Gilroy's ambition was to create a movie that shows us the world and lets us decide if we're morally conflicted enough to watch it go down. He isn't interested in judging Lou or the other stringers for their loose morals, but rather he's interested in what we might think of their behavior once we've seen behind the curtain.
We do indict local television news in Los Angeles to some degree, in the sense that they do lean very heavily into violent graphic images, but I understand the dilemma they're in. And this is one of the things thematically I was always hoping for. At the end of the film, somebody might go, okay, it's not just local television news. I watch this stuff. And what does that say about me? And it's a bigger, more complex issue that this woman who came in, who was, she's trying to buck the system, trying to change, but what is she up against? She's up against human nature. We are all programmed to watch this stuff. I go down the 405 and I'm stuck in a traffic jam for an hour, and I realize there's a crash on the other side, and the traffic jam's because everybody's looking. Right. And I tell myself, I'm not going to effing look. I'm not going to look. 9 times out of 10, I look over. It's just, we're hardwired for it. So I'm not presenting any solutions or really any answers. I'm just trying to raise questions like, look at what's going on. What is the effect of this?
So, at the end of the day, what I take away from Nightcrawler is that it's a movie about success, the cost of getting success, and the vicious cycle of perpetuating success by our deep and dark desire to watch bad things happen. It's not a movie that says I'm a bad person for consuming unethically sourced news, and it's not saying you're a bad person for it, and it's not saying that Lou is a bad person for it. It's simply saying that this is how it is, and you can do with that information what you will. And that, my friends, is what Nightcrawler is really about.
Thanks for coming out to talk.